And we are at day 37 of 50 Days of Fitness. We're under the 2 week mark left. This will wrap up before you know it. I did manage by the end of the day yesterday to get all four of my sets in. I was, uh, I wouldn't say panicked. I was a little anxious about it, the way that the day went. And but today it's kind of a more normal day. Although today is going to be a busy day too. I didn't have to get up at the crack of dawn, but I do have a morning appointment, so I'm going to be a little spread thin again today, and I have appointments this evening as well. So it may be a little bit of a challenge today as well. But and the reason I'm smiling is I did go back down to 200 today. So that 2 pounds was a 1 day thing, which made me feel a little bit better. But ignoring yesterday where I bumped up to 200, that means a week steady at 200 pounds. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next Tuesday when we have the official weigh in. But so the weight is pretty steady right now. The food, I've been craving crazy things lately. Yeah, like chocolate. I guess that's not a crazy thing to crave, but it's been a while since I've had any chocolate, and like pasta, lasagna. It's like, oh man, that would be so great. But I'm staying strong so far, so far. So we still have 2 weeks to go. So today I thought this this is a health and fitness kind of thing, and although it won't apply to everybody, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about ADHD. My oldest son had a pretty, he had a very significant ADHD, and it was hard. It was hard. It was hard on us. But it was also really hard on him. And I knew it was hard on him. I knew it was hard on him, but I didn't know what you could do about that. It was his reality, and he was going to have to learn how to deal with it. And so many years later, we got through it, and there's I could tell tons of stories about things with him growing up and the challenges that brought to me. But I want to talk about what I learned later. So later, after he was pretty much uh, an adult, or at least pretty close to it, I was introduced by a friend to Dr. Daniel Amen, who I've mentioned on here a number of times. And that was the first time I'd heard of him. I didn't know anything about him before then. And she was just really after me to buy this book, you know, and I can't remember if it's called Treating ADHD or Curing ADHD. I can't remember which it was. And I reluctantly bought it. I mean, I got to say, everybody under the sun thinks, they want to give you advice, and they don't have kids like that, and they don't know, they don't understand, but they all want to tell you, that like well, if only you did what I did, if only you knew what I knew, and so when she was telling me to do this, I was very reluctant, um, but I ultimately did buy it, and it changed everything. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was so much better than, so some of the things that we went through is that there are multiple types of ADHD. There's not just one type. And those, depending upon what type you have, it manifests itself in slightly different ways. And I had never heard that. I mean, it was you either had ADHD or you didn't have it, and I had no idea that there were different types and different kinds. But one of the other things about that is that everybody was medicating their kids, and that's kind of when he was a little kid. That was sort of when we got into this epidemic you know, um, of diagnosing almost every kid as ADHD, and it was overdiagnosed. It was way overdiagnosed. But they would put everybody on these meds. All of these kids are taking these meds, and my son was on those meds as well. Um, but what I found out is depending upon which type of ADHD you have, it changes the medicines that you should be taking. And if you're taking if you have the wrong kind of ADHD, this blanket approach of giving everybody the same meds, it makes it worse instead of better. It doesn't help. It makes it actually worse. And I had no idea. I mean, I didn't know anything about that. And I thought, if only I had known this, when he was 7, I could have taken him, to be diagnosed and hopefully had this all taken care of. And it would have been hopefully so much better for him and me and the whole family. So I'm letting you know that because I don't know if that affects you or your family or not, but if so, you might want to check into that. But the other thing that it had in there, and some of this you kind of knew intuitively, but some of it you didn't, and that was there are a lot of things that are non-medical that you should do for you or your kid, whoever has ADHD, whether you're an adult or a child. And that was another thing is there was a time where they felt like you grow out of ADHD, but you don't. When you're an adult, it just goes, it's just different when you're an adult, but you don't. So these same things apply when you're an adult. And there was this idea that, you only treat them until, when you're an adult, you just kind of outgrow it, but that's not true. You don't. So these are things that are important. If you are ADHD, and I've never thought of myself as being ADHD, but I would probably be on that spectrum a little bit. I'm always trying to do multiple things at once, and I'm switching back and forth, and kind of because of that, sometimes, I leave things unfinished because I've switched over to this. Not to the same extent, perhaps, but somewhat. But so here's some of the things you do. One is exercise. Kids like that and adults like that, you have this, you're unsettled, and having regular activity helps calm you. It helps calm your mind, calm your nervous system, and it can really help you with your focus and with everything else. So regular exercise like that is good for you. And I would say any exercise would fall into that category, with a slight preference toward cardio, running, biking, jumping, swimming, any of those things. The activity, and that's one of the reasons you probably heard the stories about Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps was an ADHD kid, and if you saw his mother's interviews during the Olympics when he was still, swimming in the Olympics, she would say, she's like, he had just like this terrible ADHD, and he started swimming and he loved it. And she said that people criticized her for making him do so much. She's like, I couldn't get him out. Well, I wasn't making him do it. I couldn't get him out of the pool. That's all he wanted to do. And but some of those kids really kind of naturally want to do those things, and that's one of the reasons why. The other thing is diet, and so those two things, the exercise and the diet, that's really true for every kind of ADHD, but the medicine is specific to the type of ADHD you're taking. And if you're taking the wrong one, it'll make it worse. But the diet, I think we all know that kids seem to be a little more hyper when we give them sugar. And again, I'm going to say, we talk about kids, and that, again, it shows you how we always focus on kids. This is true for adults too, that it makes you more hyper and all those things. And so there's sort of this, these, what do we want to say? Just these ideas that giving kids sugar makes them hyperactive. And that's true, it's true. But it goes more than that. And that is that for a kid with ADHD, a kind of a keto type diet is really good for them. That also helps calm their mind. It helps keep them much more focused. Now, I'm not going to say that that is going to completely solve everything with your kids or with you as an adult, but those are things that you can take, that you can do, that are very helpful. And so, not everybody has to be, especially kids. I'm not going to say that, that they can't ever have anything at all, but kind of a heavy protein meals, focusing on protein, really, minimizing carbs, and not just like sweets, not just those kinds of things. Something kind of similar to what I'm doing, where you minimize the pastas, minimize the breads, minimize the rice, minimize all those things. I'm not saying you can't have it at all, but if you minimize that stuff, focus on the protein. Some fat is okay too. We often think that having the fat is bad for us, but it's not. So those kinds of things are really good for ADHD. So if you have problems with focus, if you have problems with these things, and maybe you're ADHD, or if you have kids or family members that have that, those are things that could really help. Having kind of regular exercise, really kind of having a low carb kind of diet, those are things that can really help your mental health and your mental focus. And of course, you may need medication. That's going to depend. I think you have to see your doctors about that. But remember that I would really recommend reading his book. It's kind of clinical in a way. I mean, it tells stories, but there's a lot of it that's kind of clinical. So some parts of it are kind of hard to read. But in a nutshell, there are 7 or 8 different types of ADHD. And it tells some of the symptoms, it tells kind of the things so that you can tell them apart. And then depending upon that, it would change the way that you should be medicated. So just food for thought. If you're having those kinds of issues, if you're doing something like that, that might be something that you want to check on. So that'll wrap it up for day 37 of 50 Days of Fitness. And so if you like this or know someone who benefit from it, maybe you can like it, give it a share. If you enjoy this kind of content, maybe you can even subscribe. We had a previous 50 days of trash. We're going to wrap this one up in less than 2 weeks, and then we'll be starting a new 50-day challenge. And hopefully I will see you back here tomorrow, and have a great day. Take care, everybody.